Welcome to the next section in our tutorial course. Now, before this video, you would have finished, the section on basic HTML. Hopefully, that gave you, and of course, you also spent some time knowing about, the different tools that we use for coding, like GitHub, the editor, and so on and so forth. So by now you are familiar. That's what I'm trying to say. By now you're familiar, using your computer, using Git, you have spent some time, and also the whole developer routine that I keep talking about, like a pen, a paper, oh, sorry, a pen and paper, getting all those things ready, fixing a schedule. One thing which I've noticed is developers who are, the whole thing is when you're learning something, especially self-learning, the key is always discipline. You have to make sure, it's like setting aside a time, like in fact, right now, as I'm recording this video, although I'm old and everything, I'm actually pursuing a degree in English literature. That is something I always wanted to do, so I'm pursuing a degree in English literature, and so I'm also a student. It's a long distance university here in India. So the university said, I mean, again, they didn't say like in person because it's all online. They said that I have to make sure I spend at least 2 to 4 hours, or at least 20 hours every week if I have, if I'm serious and so on and so forth. Same thing applies, So every day what I do is I've got all the textbooks, some 10, 15 literature books, mostly novels and epic poems. And every day without fail, I sit and study for 2 to 4 hours, including Saturdays and Sundays. So I make sure I put in my 15 to 20 hours on a regular basis. So now, before I started this degree, I had that 20 hours for myself. But now, because the degree is on, it's a 3 year degree. So I'll have to dedicate 20 hours every week to pursue this degree along with all my responsibilities as a working professional, as an adult with adult responsibilities, and so on and so forth. So I have to adjust my lifestyle. It means I have to sacrifice some personal time. I may have to give up some of the activities, but it is what it is. And this is something I always tell my students when they're learning programming. See, when you start learning programming, whether you're learning by yourself by using courses such as ourselves, or you joined a boot camp and stuff like that, ultimately it all comes down to time. So you will have to set aside 10 hours or 20 hours, even 30 hours is not going to extreme. Okay, so you have to make sure that you set aside that time and get used to it, because you had like 10, 20 hours of free time, and now suddenly that is taken away. But this is for your career and so on. So that's another thing, hopefully you're used to it by now. So the first chapter about HTML, the previous chapter about HTML, it is not just about coding itself, but also getting in to what I like to call the developer lifestyle. So you'll have to make some compromises, move things here and there. Also, of course, like right now I have a BA degree. So the first thing I did once I got the admission confirmation was talk to my friends, family members, and even my clients who I work with, that, hey guys, I am doing this. So I will be unavailable for 20 hours every week. So it's very important to talk to your family members as well, your dependents, and maybe even your office, and tell them that, from now on you're trying to become a developer, and that is going to cut into some of the free time that you have. So get into that developer lifestyle, and I hope by the time you reach this specific chapter on CSS, you have done that, or at least you're making progress towards getting into that developer lifestyle. Like, I mean, normally what do I mean by that? Developer lifestyle means, like you have a desk, you have a fixed time every week or every day. Now there are some folks, what they do is they just set aside like 10 or 20 hours every weekend, because that's the only time they are free. Some folks, what they do is they get up really early in the morning. So let's say they go to office around 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. So what I've seen some students do is they get up around 5 a.m. or something, and then put in 2 or 3 hours in the morning, so that way it's out of the way and they can focus on the rest of their life rest of the day. Some folks, I know they prefer to do the learning at night after they've finished all the other responsibilities. So I've seen folks, they go on with their life, they come home, they do the stuff, friends, family, everything. And then every night after 8 or 9 p.m., they sit and put in about 2 to 3 hours and then go to sleep. Or as I said, some of them do it on weekends. So I don't know what works for you, but fixing a time every week, set a target. If it is 10 hours, 10 hours. If it is 20 hours, 20 hours. More is okay, definitely okay. Anything less than 10 hours a week, I don't think that is enough. But I know, again, each person has their own lifestyle. But just understand, the more hours you put in, as with everything else in life, the better and faster you'll become a developer. And of course, a developer career is very rewarding. I mean, of course, occasionally the tech industry, like any other industry, will slow down and then pick up speed. But ultimately, I've been an IT guy since 2000, professionally since 2008. But before that, I was already coding way young. And it's been good for me as a person. So I continue to make money with IT and software. It is a good life. It's been a very good life, and I believe it will continue to be a good life being in the IT industry and so on. So again, I know I'm getting a little philosophical. Sometimes I do that, but yes. So in this chapter, I just want to make sure that by the time you reach this chapter, you have gotten into a learning, lifestyle. You've gotten good at using your computer. You've gotten good at using Git. You've gotten good at using GitHub. You've gotten good at asking questions. You've gotten good at learning, searching for answers online. You've gotten good at using AI if you're using AI. You've gotten good at finding online references. So I wish to make sure that you are in that learning zone, because from now on, although this course is a very simple course, it's a very beginner course, it still is a lot, especially for a first time learner. So I want to emphasize, I hope by now you have gotten into that learning lifestyle, the coder lifestyle, fixing a schedule, and all those things I already talked about. Now, as always, what are you going to learn in this series of videos? Now, this one, let me just get my PowerPoint up on the screen. So coming back, so I've kept my PowerPoint here. I apologize for not being able to make it full screen. So we are doing basic CSS here. So there you go. Now, what we are trying to do here is, let me go. So yes, as always, the same instructions from HTML. Make sure you already know. I mean, I showed this in the previous section of videos. So if you're not sure how to get your project folder ready, please go back and watch this video. But hopefully you have done enough practice that you can do it easily by now. Of course, as always, make sure you have paper and pen. It's old school, but I'm an old school learner. When I started learning coding, I did not even have access to a computer. I had to come to my college campus, and then wait, and then book a slot to use the library computer to practice and stuff. So the pen and paper was indispensable. And now, even though I've grown older and everything, it is really very useful for me and so on. So as always, do not hesitate to use additional help in the form of example code. Now you have example code given by us, you have example code online, you have example code on AI if you're using it, and so on and so forth. As always, there is no shame in taking outside help. Okay. And next thing which I want to emphasize is, this is very very important. I mean, everything is important, but this one is even more so. See, the thing about CSS and even HTML, or any programming really, but specifically in HTML and CSS, is that there are so many things to remember. Okay. Now, just to give an idea, okay, I'm just gonna go ahead here and open a website called W3 Schools. Okay, this is I just to give you an idea of what I'm talking about. Yeah, there you go. So there is this website called these schools. Okay, so there we go. Okay, all right. I use it as a reference, this one and another website called MDN, very useful for beginner learners, and so on and so forth. Okay, now here, look, let's go to the CSS section. Okay, and you'll see on the left side, look at the long list of CSS things. It's a very long list. And each and every one of them has even more concepts that you have to remember. Each and every one of them. You go to borders, it has so many options. You go to even within borders, you have five more sections. Again, so many things to remember. Again, you go to outline, again, it has even more things. Okay. Now, this is sort of very important because there is so much to remember. And for me, yeah, again, I've been a coding guy and fairly successful at that. You can just Google my name on your computer to see that I've done pretty well for myself in the IT sector. Um, uh, but after all these years, I still find it impossible to remember all these things. Not just in HTML and CSS, in general in programming. Obviously, I code in HTML, CSS, C Sharp, JavaScript, Java, Python, PHP. I think I've worked on so many platforms in so many languages, and in all of them, I've worked with multiple clients, multiple projects, always getting paid well and getting good feedback from clients and so on, and of course, making a decent amount of money to have a good life. So I am good at this, and after all these years, now I'm almost 40. I started coding when I was 15. It's still so hard to remember all these things. And I'm telling you this because uh, you also should understand. Now, some folks, they have a very good memory and they're able to remember a lot of things without any difficulty. But for me, memory has always been a problem. I still remember when I was young, in college, in school, high school. I never could remember the names of my classmates or schoolmates. I mean, these are people I see every day for years, and yet I would constantly forget their names. I don't know why I'm like it, but it's almost like a memory disability. Um, so some folks have that problem. I've seen of all the hundreds and thousands of students I've taught in the last 25 years, memory can be an issue. So if you are one of those folks who are finding it difficult to remember all these different rules and other things, don't worry about it. It's okay. All right. And the good thing is, luckily, I guess it's a bit of a luck. By the time I started working for clients and projects, the internet was widely available in India as well. So a lot of times, it was just easier for me to just find the necessary information online. And in the last year or so, AI has become my best friend because whenever I want to do something, I can simply ask the AI. So instead of going online and searching and finding, I can just get the information from AI and so on. And not just with HTML and CSS, with your JavaScript, C Sharp, and so on and so forth. Because ultimately, when I'm working for a client, and definitely when you're working in your office and so on, you'll always have access to reference material online. And I understand a lot of companies these days are giving AI access as part of the job facilities. So if you can remember, I'm happy for you. I really am. If you can remember all these hundreds and hundreds of things, if you are able to remember, I am really, really happy for you. But if you are not able to remember, which is a problem I've seen, which out of 10 students, 5 of them can barely remember all these things despite putting in 10 hours, 20 hours every week. Again, including myself. So do not worry if you cannot remember everything. I want to emphasize this as much as possible. Programming is not just about coding. In a typical software project, I would say out of, let's say if I spend 6 hours working for a client in a day, Out of that, the actual coding is maybe an hour or 2 hour at most. The remaining 4 hours is conceptual thinking, problem solving, finding the necessary information, meetings, and things like that. So please try to understand. If you can't remember everything, it's okay. Do not, as always, don't hesitate to take help and so on. Just emphasizing that, because when I was growing up and even after I became a developer and after becoming, I was usually the youngest team leader. I was usually the youngest project manager in my projects. And a lot of time my bosses would just give me high risk projects under my belt, so I never had any issue with delivering things. But still, a lot of developers would frown upon me, my co-developers, my teammates, or sometimes even outright complaining that, and I'm their boss, so they're actually complaining that I don't know what I'm doing because I can't remember all these things, although I'm the one making sure the software being built is of the highest quality possible. So it's okay if you can't remember. Just remember that, okay? All right then. So now that I've given you some, philosophical stuff, let's move on to find out what you will be building. As always, whenever I start a video, a new section, a new chapter, I always try to show you what you'll be building so you have a clear idea what you are going to be doing at the end of the video or end of the series of videos. So here, let me bring up the example code that I have prepared for you. There it is. Let me switch. Okay, and there it is. I'm gonna hide myself. Okay, so this is what you will be building. Okay, let me quickly get the preview running. There it is. Let me open this in Firefox as well so it looks a little bit nicer. As always, whenever you're trying new things, please go ahead and open the developer tools. There you go. Okay, perfect. And there it is. So this is what you'll be building in this specific CSS section at the end of this series of videos. So it's a simple, like a flyer, like a brochure that you might have seen. Obviously you can do these things. You may have seen this in websites. It's very simple. It is about introducing you to CSS and so on. And one I want to highlight is, now let me do one thing. Let me just put this here on the right side. And what I'll do is, I'll come to these things later, but I'm going to remove the style file and see what happens. Look. See? See? See, this is what CSS does. See, this is just HTML. Right? Now let me put the style back. And look at that. I hope this gives you an idea what exactly is the purpose of CSS. So some folks use an example of an animal or something. Like if you have a lion or something, HTML is like a skeleton. Let's say you are creating something in a video game and so on. So HTML is like the skeleton. And CSS is the muzzle, the texture, the skin, the color. That's what CSS is. And of course, the brain is the JavaScript. We'll come to that later. And as you can see right now, let me show you one more time. I'll remove the style. We are back to the skeleton. I add the style. We have the skeleton plus the colors, the skin, the muzzle, the texture, all those things. So this is what CSS really does. And this is what you will be building at the end of this specific series of videos. Okay, so this is what I'm going to show you. Okay, and of course, as I mentioned before, before beginning this series of videos, please make sure you finish the HTML portion, because in this one I'll only be focusing on CSS, and whenever I do any HTML, I'll simply assume that you're familiar with the things that were already discussed in the previous series of videos about HTML. Okay, all right then. So that is what this is all about. So let me go ahead and wrap it up here. I will see you in the next video where we'll begin our CSS journey. All right then. So let's go ahead and start our CSS basic CSS series here. So now the first step in this specific chapter, there are only two steps. The first step is, of course, to get your starter folder and start with the basic coding. Now, if I go back here, let me just share my screen. Okay, here we go. Now, what I want is, if you look at the folder we have given you, the coding folder, you will see that we have a folder called Web Development Starter. So go ahead and make a copy of it. All right. Now, as always, please remember to add this to your GitHub and so on and so forth, so that whatever you're practicing with, it goes online. And as usual, don't forget that you can also use CodePen. Ideally, you would use both the direct VS Code and also CodePen when you're practicing, because that is the way it should be. So let's go ahead. I'm going to make a copy of it and keep it in my practice folder. So I'm just going to do that very quickly here. Hold on. Okay, I have my web development startup folder ready. It will have these three files. And I want to open this in my VS Code. Let me quickly go ahead and do that. Okay, there we go. Now I have my starter folder open. Okay, and there you go. You'll find these three basic files ready to roll. Okay, now once you have this, now what I want to do is, now as usual, we also given you a folder for each video. So this is like the video number one. So there will be a folder called hold on, folder called school menu dash one, which I have opened here. So this is important because every video corresponds to a specific folder. So that is what I expect you to be able to code by the end of the video. And also, let's say if a specific step has become too confusing, so let's say you go to video number two, but video number one was a little confusing for you, you can simply take the folder for video one and then continue to the next video, even though you have struggled to get the output. Now this happens a lot. Okay, or sometimes you're just revising and you want to go to step number 6 directly, then you can simply take the folder for step number 5 and carry on to the video of step number 6. So that is why we have divided the video and folder. So for every video there usually will be a corresponding folder. So for this one, this is video number 1 of the basic CSS. So there will be a folder called school menu 1, and this is what you'll be building at the end of this specific video. So you can see here it's very straightforward. The only thing is, now if I look at my starter folder, let me get that also on the screen. So you have the title here, it looks a little different, whereas what the title we want is this. And also here it says something about HTML, whereas this should be what it should be. So only two simple things for you to do here. So let's go ahead and do that. This is what I want, and this is what I have right now. So as always, I'm going to keep my example code on my other monitor. This is why, again, as I mentioned, when you're practicing with this video, so again, two monitors, very useful. I'm going to make my face disappear so you can see the entire screen. So what I need is, first step, I want to change the title. So go here to the title index.html, and let's go ahead and change that to basic CSS. You can see here as I'm typing on the right side, the letters change immediately, so that is good. And the next thing is, I don't want this right now, so I'm just gonna comment it. Commenting is command slash on the Mac, control slash on Windows. Title, again here I want to change it to basic, no, not really, not basic CSS. What are we trying to build here? We are trying to build a school menu. So school, actually what I'm going to call this school brochure, because that's what it really is, or school flyer if you like that word. So it really up to you. You know, as always, I want you to experiment as you're coding. This is what you should have. Now let's compare this to what we have here. So there you go. Both of them look similar. So I have the This is the target. I have the same thing coming up here. Let me quickly go ahead and check that in Firefox as well. So let's go to Firefox, and there you go. This is what you should have. Okay, so there it is. That is all this specific chapter is all about. It is about making sure that you get the starter folder by now, assuming that you already practiced enough with the previous HTML series of videos. You should be very good at taking the starter folder and making necessary changes. And then we just simply change the title, and then we went ahead and updated the main display text as well. We are trying to build um, a flyer for a school. Okay, so all right then, that is what we have for you in this specific video. So I will go ahead and see you in the next video. Thank you. Okay, let's resume with the next part of the basic CSS. So continuing from the previous chapter, you should already have this from the part 1 of the basic CSS video. So now in this one, in this part, the second part in basic CSS, you will be building, let me just bring the example code. There you go. This is what you're going to be building in this specific part of basic CSS. So you learn how to add your first CSS code. Okay, so let me go ahead and put this example code on my other screen. And also, just so that you can see the whole screen, let me remove myself from, there you go. Now you can see the entire screen. Now, what the first thing what I want to do is I want to go ahead and add the necessary HTML code. Now, I already have the school flyer title. Now, what I want to do is I want to go ahead and explain to you the two. Well, there are many ways you can put CSS. I won't go too deep into this, primarily because this is not an in-depth front end course. This is mainly a beginner course, so I'm just going to quickly touch upon these two things. In CSS, we can apply CSS inline. We can apply, let me just add the applying CSS in the style section, and then you can apply CSS in the external file. Now there are three ways of doing it. Now I'm going to quickly jump directly to the option that we are using in this course. Okay, now how to do these two things is kind of outside the scope of this course. So I'm going to jump directly to what we are doing here, which is applying CSS with the external file. So let me show you how you would do that. Now, if you're using, no, not if, you should be using a starter folder. Let me remove myself from the recording here. Let me do that. There you go, so that I don't want to hide anything from you. So right then, so what I'll do here is you'll see that in here you will notice that I am actually using the link tag, which is used to link things, and I'm linking a style sheet using the href. You'll remember that href is used in the a tag as well. We did that in the previous section with the basics of HTML. I am linking this file called styles.css, and you'll notice that I've already included in the starter folder a file called styles.css. Now, in case you are not using the starter, like you want to experiment and so on, then remember, when you create a new project folder, you'll start with the index.html file. Script.js, it's useful later, but if you want to, there you go. This is how we are linking the JavaScript file as well. Start noticing these things from now itself, because later when we start using them, it becomes very, very useful. And finally, create a file called styles.css, where you can include the styling CSS code for your HTML file, and that is included like this. So something to know, there are other ways of doing it, but I won't go into it right now because that's not really part of the scope of this specific course, and so on and so forth. So let's keep moving then. So the next thing for me to do is to add the necessary content to the HTML. So normally what we do is we put the HTML and then go to the style file, and start adding the CSS. So now I'm going to start by using a slide, there you go, HTML content first and then the other thing. So go ahead and use the main tag. Okay, the main tag is just like the section tag we saw before, is used to organize things. So, and I'm gonna remove this comment. I don't want this anymore. So let me go ahead and cut this from here. That's Command X for cutting on Mac, Control X on Windows. So this is what I want. So I want to use the main tag in this example, and I would like to go ahead and move my code. The next thing is I want to use a paragraph tag, and I'm going to say something like, when the school was open or something. So I will say open. I don't want to use the exact sentences from my example code. I want to experiment even as I'm typing and teaching. So I will say this school started in the year, the Batman movie was released in 1989. So I'm just going to say the school started in the year 1989. I want to use a section tag as well. So there you go, section tag. You can see as I'm typing, the output is coming on the right side. So make sure when you are typing, the same things are happening. As always, the AI is trying to help me. I don't want to take any help right now. So I'm going to say, here I'm going to say computer learning courses. So this is all I want to have in this specific part of the code. So there you go. So there, what now, you see what I did? I want to start applying some CSS. But before that, I want to go ahead and get my content ready. So remember what I spoke about in the previous video where I mentioned that CSS is styling, but before that you need a skeleton. I used an example of a tiger, like in a video game or something, where you first start with the skeleton and then add things on top of the skeleton. So similarly, I want to write my HTML and then jump to CSS. Okay, then. So let's go back here. Once again, I'm going to hide myself so you can see the full screen. So I have my HTML ready. So what I'll do is I'll go here to the style.css section. Now I already have some things. I don't need this right now. So I'm just going to go ahead and do Command A to select everything. Control A on the Windows. And there you go. I don't want any styling right now. And I have removed everything. So what I want to do is I want to start by applying styling. Now in CSS, we use what is called as selectors. Selectors are used to select which part of HTML you're trying to apply the style. So what I want to do is I want to make the h1 tag a line in the center. So there you go. That's not the AI, that's just VS Code trying to help me. So I'm going to say h1, so selecting all h1 tags, and then I'm going to use the curly braces. So now every h1 tag in the code will be selected, and then I want to say text align. Again, VS Code is going to trying to help me, and then now I want to make it in the center, and I'm going to say center. Now did you see that? Did you see that? Now let me just comment this. Look at that. And I remove the comment. Look at that. See, that is what CSS does. It allows you to manipulate the HTML things so that you can make it look better. Now this looks far better than the text simply being on the other side. So there you go. So that is what I'm doing right now. I want the text to come in the center. Now what I want to do is I want the paragraph also to come in the center. So I'm going to say, now when you're working, what I like to do is I like to have HTML and CSS both visible. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and open the HTML file as well. But I'm going to push the HTML file to the other side. See, now I can look at the CSS file, and I can also look at the HTML file. So I can see at both of them. Oh, for some reason, the CSS code went away. So let me go ahead and type it again. So there you go, H1. I want this to be aligned in the center. There you go, that is done. Now I want to look at the HTML so I can keep changing. See, this is where two monitors becomes really useful. Okay, I mentioned this. Now if I have two monitors, what I normally do is, the output here, yeah, this output here, what I like to do is I like to open this output in Firefox, and then what I'll do is I keep the output on my other monitor. See, so that way when I'm coding I can look at the CSS file and HTML file at the same time, and I can look at my second monitor and I'll be able to easily look at the output of whatever code I'm writing. See, this is why I keep telling you folks, you need to have at least two monitors when you're practicing programming. But right now, I mean, I can't record two monitors, so I have to put the Firefox back on the main screen like this. However, when you're practicing, and definitely once you start working professionally, please understand why I keep talking about two monitors and three monitors, which will really help you increase your productivity. So there you go. So now, right now, I'll just keep switching when I'm coding. So there you go. So very useful to have it like this. So I have the H1. Next, I have the paragraph tag. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and say paragraph tag. And I want to do the text align center again. So I'm going to say text align center. Let me check the output. There you go. The paragraph tag is also in the center. And I want to do the same thing to H2. And here again, I'm going to say text align and center. Now, if you want to, you can combine these three things. Like you can do, let me just comment this. Okay. And then what I can do is I can say H1 comma H2 P and then curly braces, and I can say text align, and I'm gonna say center, and the same thing happens. So if you want, you can keep it separate like this. Let me remove myself here. Yeah, if you want, you can keep this separate like this, or you can put it together. It's fine. This one is recommended because that way you have to type less, but for learners, I actually prefer this way just to keep things separated. So I'll just delete this. I don't want that right now. I'll go back to using straightforward things. So there you go. I have the flyer, all the text exactly in the center. Now the next thing I want to try is I want to add a background color here. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead. Now the background color is applied to the entire body, which is the whole body of the HTML page. So I'll come here. I'm going to say body. There you go. That's the selector. And then I'm going to say background color. Now again, the AI is trying to help me, but I'm going to just type everything myself. Now there are many ways you can do the background color. Like the VS Code will tell you how to, select a color. So I'm just going to go ahead and take that help. See, when you're learning programming, try to go with simple things. Okay, you don't have to do a lot of fancy things in the beginning. Eventually, as your journey towards becoming a developer progresses, you will definitely be learning more and more advanced way of doing things. So you'll always have an opportunity to do the things, and you should do those things when you start applying for a job and all. But right now, we want to keep things simple. So go ahead. The computer is trying to help you with some colors. Just go for it. Pick a color. So let me try that again. So there you go. Color. I'm gonna just say, hold on, something called chart reuse. So there you go. Okay, I have a color. I put a semicolon. Semicolon is optional, but I like to put those things. Keep my code clean. So there you go, folks. This is what I really wanted. Let me just take my example folder here. Let me put them side by side. This is what I wanted. Here it's blue, it's green. Again, I'm experimenting as I am doing these codes. Same thing I expect you to do when you're watching this video. Don't do exactly what I'm doing. Try to experiment. Try to make some small changes so that your learning is better. Okay, so I think I have got everything here. So I have managed to get the content in the center. I have put the center, everything in the center. I put a color in the background, and finally I added some stuff in the HTML. I also showed you how to do the CSS part, how to select things, how to type things, and how to use the preview, how to switch, how to use multiple windows. And of course, if you two monitors, you can put the output, the Firefox thing. Where is that? Let me just get that here, the Firefox. So if you have the second monitor, make sure you put the output Firefox on a separate window so that you can focus on coding without having to constantly switch between the output and the code. Because this switching, it's like 2 seconds, 3 seconds, but in a single day, you might have to look at the output for like 10 times or 50 times or 100 times. So that is a huge waste of time. That is why I always recommend that you have a what do you say, a second monitor, and even a third monitor is not overkill. So there you go, my dear students. This is what you should have at the end of this video. As always, please go ahead and pause the video, slow it down, rewind and things like that, and practice the same step again and again till you're able to do this with very minimal help from the video and so on and so forth. So that is all there is to it for now. Let me go back to my PowerPoint just to make sure that everything is there. So there you go, selectors, yeah, texture line, background color. So everything is done. So this is where I'm going to end this specific video. I'll continue in the next one. Hello and welcome to the next part in our basic CSS section of the course. Now, till now, let's see what we have managed to do till now, and of course, what you'll be achieving by the end of this video and so on. So let's go ahead and quickly get our folder. This is what we, oh, I'm not showing my screen. Hold on, there you go. I'm just gonna remove myself from the video. So this is what we managed to do in the end of the previous part of the video. So you had some text, some headers and paragraphs. We put some, we found out how to use CSS, how to write some basic selectors and so on and so forth. Now in this one, what we are going to try to do is we will try to build this. So let me go ahead and show you a quick preview. So this is what you'll be doing before the end of this video. So what you'll do is you'll learn how to modify the main tag. Now you'll notice that in the practice code that we have from the previous part, we have a main tag, okay, and we are going to make it so that this becomes like this. So the idea is very simple. We want the main content to have its own color, and the color should only apply to the main content. Like right now it is being applied to the entire page. We are going to make it so that the color is only applied to the main section only, and whatever else we put to the main section, it will continue to have that color. So it looks a little bit better. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So let me go ahead and remove myself here so you can look at the entire screen. I'm just gonna move this. This is your practice folder, so please make sure that you have this ready. Okay, so please make sure that you have this ready from the previous part. If you don't have it ready, then please go back and do it, or you can simply take the part 2 folder from the example code that we have given and continue from there. So the idea is very simple right now. Now, as always, I'm going to do this one more thing. Let me just bring my example code here. You'll notice that I have added a couple of images to the project. Now, this is not there in the previous part. You can see here on the left side. So that is not really there, and it is here. So there are actually two things we are doing here: main tag, and of course add images, which we will use in the next part. Okay, so go ahead, grab a couple of videos from the internet. I already showed how to, in the previous section where we spoke about HTML. I showed you already how you can get some images from the internet and then include them in your project. So please go back and revise that step, or you can simply take the images that we have given in the example folder and use it in your project. But I would really think, you know, you should get your own images, and it's a very simple step, and you should be able to do it by now. So all right then, so let's get back to my screen here. Okay, and there it is. All right, so I have my practice folder, the one which I already have. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to the style section, but first I gotta put some images. So I can get the images from wherever I want, right? So but what I will do is I'll go ahead and take the image, let's say from the internet, right? I'm just gonna go, I have my own, hold on, let me see which images I can use. Okay, I could go to Wikipedia. So let me just go to Wikipedia. I'm gonna just search for pandas or Toko toucan. Right. It's a very beautiful bird called Toko toucan. Okay, there it is. So I'm on the Toko toucan. I hope I'm saying it correctly. Let me go ahead and use some Toko toucan images, right? They look beautiful. They're nice birds. I remember seeing a photo of this bird. Obviously, they're not in India, so I haven't seen them in person. But They look very attractive. So I'm simply going to grab one of these photos from Wikipedia. Wikipedia is always a good source to get some nice images. So I'm simply going to save this image here. Okay, I need one more image, two images I need. Let me take this one. Once again, let's go ahead and, right, there you go. Okay, so next thing what I want to do is I'm gonna put them in my folder. Let me quickly get them here from the downloads folder on my computer. And then I'm going to put them in my project folder. So my project folder is here. Where are you? There you go. I'm just gonna right click, reveal, and there it is. I have the two images now in my project folder. So that step is done. So like how you saw right now, I was able to get the images from the internet. You also go ahead, get whatever images you want. I mean, we are building a computer science learning course, but I'm using some Toka to count photos, which is fine. You can use whichever is the one that you like. It's totally fine. Right then. Okay, so there we go. This is what you have right now. So now let's go ahead. Now I got the images working. So please go ahead and get the images from wherever on the internet, or you can use your own personal images also. It's fine. It's okay. And remember, you don't have to make a brochure about computer learning courses. You can make a flyer or brochure of anything you want, like a birthday party or a visit to the local zoo. It's totally up to you. Okay. All right then. So I got the images. Next step, what I want to do is I want to go ahead and start manipulating the style. So let me just remove myself from the screen here so you can see the entire screen. There you go. That's what it is. And let me just minimize this. Okay, that's good. Right there. So go to the style section. You'll see here on the left side there is a style section. This is what we are going to manipulate right now. So we are trying to update the menu tag. See here, we are trying to update the main tag. Okay, and so what I'll do is I'll go here. Now selecting a tag is easy. All you have to do is go ahead and you can just say main, and that is one easy way to select the main tag. However, there is something which we can do here. I just realized instead of directly manipulating the main tag, what I'm going to do is I am going to go ahead and put this main tag inside a div. Okay, let's go ahead and put this main tag inside the div. I want to align the code correctly. And there you go. So what we'll do here is we will do what is called as a selector. Okay, so for that, I'm going to put this div inside a class. Okay, now I'm going to attach a class to this. So I'm going to say class equals, I'm going to call this class flyer. Okay, so instead of manipulating the main tag directly, because we might have other main tags or we might have something else which we don't want to manipulate there. So it's always a good idea to use classes. And also this is a good option for me to introduce you the whole idea about classes. So I'm going to create a class. Now these are not classes that you see in JavaScript or other programming. These are CSS classes. So now this is where I just want to jump in here. Now you have to understand that it can be a little bit confusing because when we go into programming, you talk about object-oriented programming and things like that. We are not touching that here in this specific course, where we do use the word classes. Okay, class-oriented programming, especially if you have maybe casually learned about C# and Java, C++, and so on. There is a concept called classes. That is not the classes we're talking about here. CSS classes are separate. In CSS, you can have selectors in different ways. Like if you go to the screen right now, you'll see here that you can select using the tag, but you can also select a specific block of code using the class selector. So that is what we are trying to do here. So let me jump back to it. So what I'm going to do is I've created a class called flyer, and I'm going to take that class name here. And what I will do is I'll go ahead and use the class itself to select that specific section. Now the class is called flyer. So it's always a good idea to copy paste these things. Use the dot selector and then select the flyer class. So AI is trying to help me with some things. I don't want to take any help from AI right now. So I'm just going to leave it as it is. So in the flyer, the first thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and adjust the width. So I'm going to take the width. I'm going to make it 50%. Okay, so there you go. I have the width as 50%. You can see something is happening there. Now that seems to push things to the left side. So let me make it 70%. Okay, all right. Let me make this 80%. Okay, let me leave it there for now. So next thing what I want to do is I want to update the background color. So I'm going to say background color, the same thing that we used in line number 14. I want to make this whatever color I want. As told you already, it doesn't matter which color you're using. Go ahead and experiment with something. I'm going to make this to matter. Now you'll see this here. This is very important. So because the flyer class, okay, now because the flyer class is attached to this specific portion of the code, only those things will be affected. Now let's say I have another div here. I'm just going to put it here. It's not part of the final code. I'm just going to put a paragraph here, another div just to show. Okay, just going to put a jump, copy paste. So there you go. So that will not get affected. Only this will get affected here, because that is the class we are trying to manipulate in the CSS file. So something to remember, something to understand. Okay. All right, let me just get rid of this for now. I just put it there just to show you how this works. Okay, let me remove myself here so you can see the whole screen. Right then, so I have that. Now let me do one more thing. It's looking a little bit to the left. So what I can use is I have another property called margin. So I can say margin, and then I can say auto. Now it goes to the center. So it is in the center. That's what I really wanted. So I have auto. Another way of doing this is I can say something like margin, and then I can say left. I can say auto, and I can also say margin right, and I can say auto. So that way, what happens is with margins, they will try to divide the content and try to put them exactly in the center. Now that is what margin use. So you can either do, margin left and right separately and just put auto. That's one way of doing it. Or you can say margin left and right auto, and you can get the same effect. Now this is something you will really understand the more you do HTML and CSS. There are always 2, 3, sometimes 10 different ways of achieving the same result. Okay, so whichever you feel comfortable doing it, go ahead and use that method. But don't worry if you got the center alignment in one specific way and another person maybe on the internet or AI or another student in the class is able to get the same effect from a different option. So just remember, there are more than one way to get anything done in programming. So this is one way that I'm talking about, and in my opinion, the simplest way to get this done. All right, so let's get back to it. So I have got this exactly in the center. I've got the background color, and I've added the 2 images. And now if I go back to my example code, this is all I wanted to do. So there it is. So this is what we wanted to achieve, and we've got it. Now, of course, in our practice code, I have the background color there. So if you don't like it, like if you want to make it exactly like what I have in the example code, you can always go ahead and remove the background color, right? But I like to keep it though. I think I kind of like this, so I'm going to leave it as it is. So either way, so you can either try to aim for this where you remove the background color, or you can try to keep it this way. As always, as I keep saying many times, don't be hesitant to experiment. Even when you're learning for the first time, nothing is stopping you from trying to do something new to get things moving. And don't forget experiment. Like for example, let's try to do something. What I can do is, what if I try to change the width here? Right now I put it at 80%. What if I make it 60%? There you go. That's what happens. So what if I make it 40%? See, that's how it is. So just go and experiment. Same thing with the background color. Like what if you don't have a background color? Is that what you wanted? No, then go ahead and try to change this. And what about the margin? So let's say I will say margin top, I'm going to say 100 px. There it is. And then I'm going to say margin bottom, and I'm going to say this is like 200 px. It doesn't seem to affect. However, it will have an effect if I go and uncomment this, because there's something in the bottom. Now, did you see that? And of course, you want to open this in Firefox and look at how this is happening. So go ahead and open the developer tools and start using the inspector. See, look at that. Look at that. Right. So if I go here and that is the entire body. But if I go to the div class flyer, see, this is all the code that you typed. What if I remove the width? So that's what happens. What if I remove the background color? Oh, okay. What if I remove the bottom margin? Ah, I see. What if I remove the top margin? Oh, I see. And now if you don't like these changes, just reload the page and you're back to how it was. But again, go to the bottom. Let me show that to you again, just in case you want to experiment. So go here, developer tools, check the inspector. And now just move your mouse slowly and you'll get different things being selected. Now I want to manipulate this, so there you go. I want to manipulate this, there you go. And now I have the margin. Yes, margin left auto. So this top is 100. I can go and change something here, or I can go here and I can change it myself. I can make it 200. There you go. I can make this one 500. There you go. So you can edit here, you can edit here. You know, there's also stuff like border, and also what if I go ahead and put the border at 50? What if I put this one at 40? And what if I put this border at 30? And what if I put this border at 25? Did you see that? And whatever you do here, it immediately shows up here as a code that is being written while you're selecting and experimenting with things. So this is what I'm talking about, my dear students. So when you're doing stuff, do not hesitate to experiment. Oh, you couldn't see that what I was doing. Hold on, let me remove myself. So this is what I'm talking about. Let me start again. So border, so here, this one here, I can go ahead and change this. Look at that. I can change this from 200 to 500. Oh, okay. And then if I don't like that, I can change the border. I can make it 100. I can make this border 50. And as you do these things, you can see the code is being added to your actual code. The code is being generated for you. That's not AI. That's just standard developer tools behavior. If you don't like any of these things, just reload the page back to how it was. But if you do like something, you can copy that code and put it, so if you like this one, you can say, okay, style equals this one, take this and go here where it says div class fire, and there you go. That's it. Easy. And if you don't want it here, then you can copy this code, cut it out so it goes away, come back to your style and put it here in the flyer. See, that's it. But I don't really like it right now, so I'm just gonna get rid of it. So this is what we wanted. Let me just, oh, not really. This is not really what I wanted. I wanted the width to be a little bit better. Good. I don't want any margin in the top and bottom. Not right now. That's better. This looks nice. And I don't want that extra, that was just for showing anyway. So I'm just gonna comment it out. And now if I bring my reference example, there it is. They look similar. This is what I wanted. So there you go, my dear students. So this is what I'm talking about. Do not hesitate to experiment with different things. Just go make mistakes. If something goes wrong, you can always revert to the previous code. You can just use our example folder or just restart the video and start over. That is how you go ahead and learn new things. And in CSS, there are always more than one way to do the same thing. And not just in CSS, in programming in general. So when you are doing something like this, you might go online or ask for AI, watch some other video or something, another course video or something. Then you will see that everybody has their own way of getting things done. That is the flexibility, but also it can be a source of confusion, especially when you're learning programming for the first time. So in the beginning, just follow what we are teaching, try to experiment within what we are teaching, and then go out there and experiment. And don't forget to use the developer tools and learn to change values and things like that and all those things. So there you go, folks. That is what we are talking about. Let me go ahead and bring up the PowerPoint. So those are the things. Actually, it's not the main tag. What we actually did was eventually we ended up using the class selector. We did manipulate the main tag, but using CSS classes. So I'm just going to update my notes here just to avoid any confusion. So there it is. That's what I have for you in this specific part. I will continue in the next part. So welcome to the next part of our basic CSS section of the front end course. So in this chapter, what we are trying to do is we are going to show you, I'm going to show you how to add the background image, and then I'm going to show you this new article tag. Now you have to understand that most of the time, in HTML, well, in any programming language, you can do the same thing in different ways. So whatever you can do, you can probably just use a p tag here, but we're going to use there's a dedicated a tag called article tag, so which we're going to use, and then of course we'll use CSS classes to modify the article tag until we get the desired output. So you should already have, from the previous chapter, you should already have this in front of you. In the previous part, we managed to do this. And now what we'll be doing is, let me bring up what you learn how to build by the end of this video. Let me go ahead and quickly get the preview here. So this is what you are going to build at the end of this specific part of the video. So you learn how to, as I mentioned in the PowerPoint, you learn how to put a background image, add some items, build out like a flyer with a list of items. So here I'm trying to do like a list of courses that an imaginary school might be offering to its students. So this is what we are going to do here. So let me quickly remove myself from the screen, and I'm going to just put my final code on my other monitor. As I keep saying, hopefully you have a second monitor with you. So first step, let's go. And also there is something which happens, there is something that happens. I told you CSS can get a little confusing. Something that you would feel is obvious can be so confusing. And this is one of the reasons why I know a lot of time, like as my career has grown, I've never really, what do you say, have been a big fan of HTML and CSS and so on. So I know, I mean, I built it, I work on it, and I've been doing it for so many years. But this is one of, I'll show you today what is it about CSS, which I've seen some students get a little annoyed. I myself, as a developer, sometimes get annoyed. Maybe it is common sense, but somehow it doesn't seem so commonsensical when it happens. So I'm going to give you an example how sometimes CSS can behave in a way, and you'll start scratching your head, what is happening and why is it behaving that way. So we'll look at that as well. So let's go ahead here then. So let me bring up the screen again. So I have my index.html once again. Okay, so what I want is, let me just remove these extra code. Okay, first step is I have my section. I'm going to jump directly to the section, and I'm going to go ahead and start adding those article tags I talked to you about. So I'm going to go ahead and put the article tag here. Okay, I want 5 items, so I'm just going to copy paste article 5 times. Inside this article, I want a paragraph tag. Okay, so what I want is, I want to say like HTML, and then I want to mention the price. So the price is going to be let's say 4.99. So I have the title, and then I have the price as well. So let me go ahead and copy this paragraph tag and put it inside, and I want to do some indentation to make the code look a little better. So there you go. You also do the same thing. Make sure you add all these things. Be very careful. Keep an eye on the colors. The VS Code colors are always trying to help you. So there you go. So again, I just want to emphasize the fact here that when you're adding all these things, I'm using a lot of keyboard shortcuts, copying, pasting, using the arrow keys. Now these things you may not be able to do right away, and you will show a strong tendency to use the mouse for everything. Try to reduce the amount of time, one hand on the keyboard, one on the mouse is good, but as much as possible, both hands on the keyboard. Minimum mouse usage, always a good idea for a developer. So learn the shortcuts, learn how to use alt left, alt right, shift left, shift right, use the arrow keys up, down, and if possible, try to use the keyboard without actually looking at it. Can be really useful.